Hello and happy Marketing Monday. I am so excited because this week I have the lovely Liz Short with me. How are you, Liz?
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Liz, why don't you? I'm sure everybody's seen you all over LinkedIn. You're so active, but for those who haven't been introduced to you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I am the CEO of Short Solutions. I have been in the mortgage and technology industry for over 20 years, and I help businesses and leaders optimize their processes, technology, and their people.
Yeah, I love it. And we were just having a great conversation before we hopped online here about change management. So today we're talking about managing your processes, managing change, and as Liz said, managing your people. So, Liz, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're finding right now, especially in this market when it comes to change management?
Yeah, so I think number one, change management is such a important part of the equation when we're talking about technology implementation or any big projects that an organization is tackling. And I think the biggest struggle that I see is number one, people not considering change management when
Mhm.
they are thinking about implementing new software or new technology. We think about time, we think about spend, we don't think about the people impact of the change. And I think that's really one of the most important things to think about in the beginning,
Yeah.
because it is so hard to get people to want to change anything that
Yes.
they're doing,
Yeah.
even if it's a change for the better. So you really have to be strategic about how you approach these things. And so many people just aren't even thinking about that as part of their project
I
planning.
think that's a really good point. And we'll get into this a little bit later about CRMs. So I've been through several CRM changes in my time in marketing. And I've always found that the biggest obstacle isn't moving the data. It's not setting up the CRM. It's getting the team to adopt the new CRM. So when we're going into a process like that, let's use a CRM, for example. How do you get your team to engage and go through the process of change?
So a couple different things, right? I think first and foremost, you have to have buy-in at the leadership level on why you're doing it, right? If the executive team doesn't believe in it, has their arms crossed and is like, I guess I don't know why we're moving forward with this, the team's not going to buy in, right? You might
Yeah.
as well just not do it. So the leadership really has to buy in. They have to be telling the story of why
Mhm.
we're doing this for a long period of time before someone even sit down and turn on the system and get trained on it, right? And they
Mhm.
really have to, I love the phrase change champion, right? Be that
Yeah.
leader that's really instilling this excitement about why we're doing this, why we're moving forward, what that change is
Mhm.
going to be. Um, I think the second most important part is you have to make the training engaging and
Yeah.
specific to the audience, right? Especially if we're talking about salespeople. I love you all. But we have to figure out how we're meeting people where they're at. They are
Right.
busy, they are moving, they have a lot going on. How do we make this applicable to them, dynamic, engaging, and appropriate for when they need that information? And I think if you can do those two things successfully, easy, right? I think you've really tackled a successful implementation.
Yeah, and I love what you're talking about with the specific training. I think often whenever we're given training, it's like, all right, now you do this, now you do that. And sometimes you may never use that part of the
Yep,
system ever again. So whenever we're talking about how do you use the CRM tool or another software piece, making sure that you've tailored that education to who you're
yep,
talking to and that you're speaking the same language, because the way that I view a prospect is very different from how a salesperson might view a prospect, because I'm always looking at things from an MQL perspective and they're looking from an SQL. So making sure that number one, your team is speaking the same language, and that your definition in marketing is your definition for marketing. And then you talk about what is your sales definition and you tailor that to the sales definition so that they
huge.
understand. So real quick, thinking along the lines of CRMs, how does someone, this is your area expertise, change management, making systems work. How do you make the most of that CRM once you've gotten the buy-in, once you've gone through that change process, and once you're ready to really make this tool work for you?
Yep. So I think both on an organizational level and on an individual level, number one, you have to understand what your specific process is, right? And as salespeople, we all have our own little way that we approach our day, right? And so, number
Yeah.
one, understand that before you open up the tool, right? Because the tool
Yeah.
needs to be used to support your process. And again, that's at the organizational level, that's at the individual level.
Mhm.
I think number two, implement the features that make sense, especially at organizational
Mhm.
level for you. That's not everything, right? But
Right.
if it's there and it makes sense for your business, use it, right? And I think
Yeah.
especially as salespeople at organizations, there's a lot of time that our marketing team has given us every single bell and whistle in a CRM, and we're not using any of them, right? And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean use them all at once, but start somewhere, figure out what
Right.
it is, figure out how you can use it, and then start trying it out. These systems are used for a reason, right? They really do work. You can't keep everything up here. And so figuring out how you can make that work for your own process, I think is really where that magic lies in
Yeah.
implementation.
I love that. And I love being strategic about the features. And I think you hit on that really well is if it's there and it makes sense for your business, use it. I often think of the HubSpot files.
Yep.
So very, very basic tool. You upload a file, you get a link.
Yep.
And it sounds like, oh, well, why wouldn't I just use it? But a lot of the teams don't use it to its fullest potential. You can lock documents, you can track when someone's opened it. So rather than everything living inside of your internal database, have it live in HubSpot. You can see when your team has viewed the training. You can see when your contacts have viewed a flyer, get an understanding of what direction they're going. And I bring that one up because I think there's so many possibilities for it to be used. But I think a lot of the times people are so used to their internal databases that they're afraid to migrate to another solution. And so, as part of that change management and part of making those tools work for you, you have to evaluate how can I use this and how's it going to benefit my internal team and my external audience?
Absolutely. I love what you said there because I think what that really points to is you have to be looking at your whole tech stack whenever you're
Mm-hmm.
implementing any piece of software because there's very few pieces of software that do one thing anymore, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I probably have 3 tools right now that I could do calendar scheduling with if I wanted to. And I don't have
Right.
any specific tool that I purchased for calendar scheduling. And so really understanding what you need in your process first, and then what each of those tools in your tech stack does is going to help you make those smart decisions of which feature where you need to implement. Because the other thing is you don't want to give everybody the ability to do everything everywhere because then that's just chaos. And
Yeah.
both for yourself and for an organization, you can't live
That's
like that.
huge with implementation on CRMs is making sure you have the right permissioning.
Yep.
And sometimes you have to go back and reevaluate that permissioning. I don't know if you've ever gone through that process, but I have. And it's been, all right, who really needs access to X, Y, and Z?
Yep.
And a lot of the time, you'll find that you're giving more away than you should be.
For sure.
And that's when mistakes can happen. That's when processes kind of fall apart. And so it's important to be reviewing that regularly. So, Liz,
Absolutely.
if you
Absolutely.
could give one piece of advice for someone implementing a new tool or software,
Mhm.
like number one thing, what would it be?
Before you look for anything, document the process that the technology is going to fit in on paper, and then make sure you have a bullet point list of features that you want, and more importantly, problems you're trying to solve with the technology.
Mhm. Yeah. Start with the end in mind.
You have to, or
Yeah.
else you're going to get confused and go down a path that you weren't even intending to begin with.
Yeah.
So you got
I
to
love
know
that.
where you want to go.
That's wonderful. And I 100% agree. I think that's probably the best piece of advice is start with the end in mind.
You got to.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Liz, so much. It's been so exciting connecting with you and getting to know you and talking marketing and processes. So thanks for joining us on this Marketing Monday.
It's been so much fun. Thanks for having me, and I can't wait
Yeah.
to chat more with you.
So if someone wants to find you, where can they find you, Liz?
Best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn. I am the Liz Short. You can find me there. Just Google Liz Short Mortgage, and I will pop up as well too. So both places.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Liz. And I hope you have a great day.
Thanks. Same to you, Allie. Bye.